Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, Top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit online magazine, certainly the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, and of course, the people's choice and the people's voice. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Hope you all have a wonderful President's Week. Obviously, acknowledging all the greatness of our American presidents, and for many of you that are off, whether it be from work or school collectively, hope you're enjoying all the great programming we bring you every single week here on the Hudson Media Group websites. And of course, there's always a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, you know, it's one of the things I like to sort of call out is bad journalism. And of course, when we think about bad journalism, there's certainly no shortage of it in the state of New Jersey. But I specifically want to go after one journalist, or at least the guy who I think is more of a propagandist masquerading as one, and that's Thomas Moran from the Star-Ledger via NJ.com. Now, Tom Moran took some liberties with my name last week in a column in response to my exclusive with Jersey City Councilwoman Amy DeGise. But as always, Tom likes to virtue signal, and Tom also likes to sort of cherry pick his facts, but now I'm going to have to check them and sort of straighten the record because it seems like Tom isn't capable of doing that himself. Now, as we all know, he published an article last week called The Amy DeGise Redemption Tour Goes Splat. I wasn't aware that Amy DeGise was on any sort of redemption tour, but nonetheless, of course, the big headlines is what gets attention, at least in Tom Moran's world. Now, as we all know, last week I was the first journalist to interview Amy DeGise after the incident that happened in July of 2022. Now, let me preface this by saying, because it seems like Tom Moran didn't watch the interview, or, you know what, maybe in his advanced age, maybe his hearing isn't as good as it used to be, or maybe just people hear what they want to hear. But last week, I was very specific in terms of my rapport with Amy, and I'm not going to apologize about it. But also let me be clear about a couple of things, because it seems like this is where Tom Moran got it wrong. So he starts the column by saying, Jersey City Council member Amy DeGise was careful in her choice of a, quote, journalist, and he made a point to put the word journalist in quotations, to break her long silence about her infamous hit-and-run crash 7 months ago. The podcast host was Fernando Uribe, who called himself her personal friend and kicked off the show by attacking her critics as, quote, fickle men and overly hysterical women, which he's wrong, and I'll tell you why later, while calling himself New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist. Well, again, Tom, if you're willing to go on record and say that U.S. Representative Josh Gottheimer, New Jersey State Senator Brian Stack, as well as the Hudson County Latino Foundation and other nonprofits who have bestowed those awards on me, if you're willing to go on record and say that these people don't know what they're talking about, hey, have at it. I dare you to do so. But folks, here's a spoiler alert, Tom Moran won't even touch it. But again, let's get back to sort of misrepresenting my specific quotations. Now, again, as I said last week, I'm friends with Amy DeGise. I've never asked her for a job, though. I've never asked her dad for a job, nor have I ever asked anybody in the HCDO, again, the Hudson County Democratic Organization, for a job either. Now, as it pertains to the quote that Tom Moran is referencing, well, very simply, folks, and I said it last week and I'll have to say it again. There are plenty of people in New Jersey politics, activists, whatever you want to call it, that have decided to sort of dissolve their friendship with me because of my political views and, quite frankly, the media brand, which is very successful and gets great organic traffic. And, of course, that doesn't sit well with them, so why not dissolve the friendship with me? Now, that includes many men in New Jersey politics as well as being activists, candidates, whatever, and they've decided to no longer be friends with me. That's fine. Same thing with women in the state, whether it be activists, former legislators. All those overly hysterical women have also decided to sever ties with me because they just don't agree with my specific media brand. But Amy DeGise chose not to do that. And do you think for 1 second that from the moment she got elected HCDO chairperson in June of 2018 in a hot and sweaty cafeteria at Kearney High School in Western Hudson County, okay, her very first interview was with yours truly. And from July of 2018 until June of 2022, Amy DeGise, in her capacity not just only as HCDO chairperson, but still also as a council person, decided to come on my podcast every single month. Again, which you can check out at blogtalkradio.com/talkintohudson. Do you think that by any stretch of the imagination that not one person in HCDO or anyone in elected government or anybody in Jersey City or Hudson County wasn't in Amy's ear saying, you know what, don't go on Uribe's show. He's a conservative blowhard, or he's opinionated, or he's arrogant, or he's smug, or he's full of himself. Well, whether or not any of the aforementioned is true is up for debate. But did Amy listen? No. Amy's an adult. And while Amy and I disagree on almost everything politically and probably have very different policy prescriptions, Amy made it a point to say, hey, we're friends, but we're also adults. We can agree to disagree and be civil about it and also be amicable. And that's what she did. So when I'm making reference to people that are, again, overly hysterical women and fickle men, these are men and women in New Jersey that have chosen to no longer speak to me because of my political views. Not the people that are critiquing Amy DeGee's, though that's not exactly the reference that Tom Moran is alleging. Now, as it pertains to critics of Amy DeGee's, whether it be cyclists, cyclist organizations, elected officials in Jersey City, activists, candidates, social media trolls, those are the people I don't care for. Those are the people that I, quite frankly, have no use for. So whether it's cyclists that I've said, hey, you can all go to hell, or anyone else, that's my prerogative. So again, Tom, you need to get your facts straight because you struggle with them. Let's continue. As he goes on with this column, of course, he says, quote, I'm going to stick up for her because that's what friends do. He announced on his podcast, Real Talk. I just wanted to put that out there. First of all, Tom, if your intent was to drive people away from my podcast, that obviously didn't succeed because traffic is as high as it's ever been. And when was the last time you ever averaged a few thousand on anything you've ever published? Spoiler alert, folks, he hasn't. Of course, Tom Moran, didn't waste any time calling this was fake journalism. Hudson County style. If you're in the club here, a friend of the machine, you rally to the powers that be. Folks, again, this is why I have to clarify and maybe, check Tom Moran once again, as I did on my Real Talk show via Jersey First TV. I don't benefit anything from the machine. They don't give me money. I don't have a job with the HCDO. I'm not looking for a job. The only collaboration I've had with the HCDO that's ever involved any transaction involving money has been every October for the last 15 years. I've been volunteering for the American Cancer Society. I've been making a difference volunteering for the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer campaign. And in those 15 years, for the last few, the Hudson County Democratic Organization has made a point to donate to my event. Because, Tom, I'm doing for women. I'm helping women of color, right, that are disproportionately more affected by breast cancer than their white counterparts. What are you doing for women, Tom? Oh, more on that later. But of course, that's the extent of my relationship with the Hudson County Democratic Organization. You think Tom would be intellectually honest enough to say that? Of course not. So Tom, the idea that I'm benefiting or I'm part of the machine or the establishment, that couldn't be any further from the truth. As a conservative and as an independent, and probably one of the few conservative journalists in New Jersey, I'm clearly probably not on the most favorite people list within the HCDO, and that's okay. I find a way to coexist with them as they find a way to coexist with me. I don't bother them, they don't bother me. Now, if that's your idea of being in with the machine, then Tom, I think you need to sort of reevaluate how you understand political science. More on that later. Now, of course, as he goes on, sort of in his bloviating in this column here, one of the things that's very interesting at the very end, he makes it a point to talk about, of course, she has agreed to a real interview with David Cruz on New Jersey Spotlight's chat box. Now, let me be very fair. I ridicule David Cruz often for his very bad brand of journalism. But I'll give him credit last week where he brought in Amy DeGee's to the NJ Spotlight News studios in downtown Newark at the Gateway Center. And of course, you could tell that, when you're watching David Cruz, he has like a plethora of papers. It seems like he was like killing multiple trees to write a dissertation. But nonetheless, credit to David Cruz. Good questions. She answered them to the best of her ability, and that's it. Now, there's still people online that aren't going to be happy because we all know they exist in Jersey City, Hudson County, and in New Jersey. They bitch to live, and they live to bitch. Amy's answers weren't going to satisfy everybody, and clearly they didn't satisfy Tom Moran. But again, Tom, this is the thing. In terms of what's real journalism and what's fake journalism, see, maybe your understanding of what journalism is has changed. See, you're not as antiquated or prehistoric, right, as I thought you were, but you know what? You clarified that for me completely last week, okay? Journalism has evolved. Maybe you haven't. There's vlogging, there's podcasting, there's live streaming. People now find a way to get their news, not just by reading traditional news sites like NJ.com or the Star Ledger, which, by the way, continues to blow up my inbox every week with begging me for money to subscribe to premium content for as low as $1. Folks, let's be honest, NJ.com and the Star Ledger aren't even worth $1. But again, more on that later. One of the things that's interesting about Tom Moran in this column is, again, this sort of aura of scumbag entitlement that Tom Moran continues to sort of carry himself with. And of course, sort of be sanctimonious in calling out other people's privilege. Well, let's talk about privilege, right? And when we talk about privilege, of course, we talk about Tom Moran. And of course, when we talk about Tom Moran, we all remember the incident from 2019 where he apparently had some sort of conflict with Hudson County Prosecutor Esther Suarez, right? We all know the columns. He was very adamant and critical about Esther Suarez possibly becoming the next United States attorney. Obviously, with the change of the guard in the White House, and certainly the Joe Biden administration, which is, again, has completely effed us to no ends. Of course, new U.S. attorneys are nominated in every single state via the Justice Department. And of course, Tom Moran had an issue with Esther Suarez. Now, I don't have a particular issue with Esther. Seems like a nice lady. She's always been very cordial with me. But folks, let's remember back to 2019. And of course, I thank you to David Wallstein in that same reporting that he did with the New Jersey Globe reporting on this story. Now, again, folks, it's a simple Google search, and that's all it takes to find out what happened with Tom Moran. And of course, when we look at it, let's just see as, of course, one of the biggest things is whether it was a nearby Hudson County prosecutor, a Jersey City Police Department sergeant that were in the vicinity at the Liberty House in downtown Jersey City, right by Liberty State Park. Now, this is what really, really makes it funny. And this is where Tom, again, lacks awareness. If we all recall, we saw the video coverage, we saw the Oprah request by David Wallstein, and the footage that was there. It was very clear that Tom Moran was confronting Esther Suarez, maybe somewhat smothering her, but really being very invasive in her own personal space. Now, consequently, there's been some speculation about whether or not he grabbed her arm to get her attention because she wouldn't talk to him. Regardless of the fact, Esther Suarez chose not to press charges on Tom Moran. Now, again, it was very well escalated, and there was a lot of media coverage about it. But this is where you lose a lot of people, Tom. You want to talk about other people's privilege? Let's be fair. If Fernando Uribe decided to confront Esther Suarez at a political event and decides to invade her space and possibly, come into contact with her, my ass would be in jail. Somehow you avoided any sort of fine, hearing, or any sort of custodial sentence. Tom, if that's not the symbolism of privilege, I don't know what is. And I'm the last one to ever talk about identity politics and white privilege because I don't like to sort of throw that card out there. But in this specific example, it totally applies. So Tom, have some awareness. If you're going to accuse Amy DeGees of being the beneficiary of privilege, I don't know. I'm not going to go on record and say anything about that. We all know what the penalty was in Essex County Superior Court. It was a $5,000 fine. Her driver's license was suspended for 1 year. I don't have all the data for recent court logs when it comes to cases that were disposed of in the last, 5 years in Essex County. If that's what the judge ruled, that's what the judge ruled. Should it have been harsher? Should it have been more lenient? I don't know. I'm not going to make that assessment, and neither should you. When we all know that when it came to you and Esther Suarez, you were the beneficiary of privilege. Someone like me with my complexion does that to Esther Suarez, my ass is in jail. Yours actually avoided jail. So when we talk about privilege, Tom, be very careful about throwing stones in a glass house. Because when it comes to privilege, and more so white privilege, Thomas, you don't have a leg to stand on, like much of your journalism seems to be the product of every single day. And somehow NJ.com thinks we should spend $1 for their premium content. As long as Tom Moran is out there, why is it even worth it? It shouldn't be. This article clearly isn't worth it, and neither is Tom Moran's brand of journalism altogether. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. And now some other local stories for your consideration. A shout out to Sophie Nieto Munoz with the New Jersey Monitor for her outstanding reporting on this very, very important development. Now, apparently, New Jersey Transit bus riders ultimately want a, quote, Bill of Rights to guarantee some sort of improved service within the transportation system. Now, the bill that's being discussed includes 10 guarantees for riders, ranging from ensuring that there are sufficient buses to service all customers throughout the state of New Jersey, publishing public ridership and on-time data regularly, printing up-to-date routes and schedules in several languages, updating bus schedules every 12 months, and maintaining sanitized fleets that offer seating for passengers with disabilities. For example, Peter Reyno of the Blinded Veterans Association is a blind resident who depends on public transit to get to and from social services. Rajno said New Jersey transit routes are scarce where he lives in Burlington County, and he often needs to ride multiple buses to get to his destination. For example, with him, buses have skipped him because he didn't want to wave his hand to stop them. He also said that adding that bus drivers have been rude to him when he tries to confirm the number of the bus he's getting on. So, for example, now the bill was only up for discussion this past week in the legislature, but many lawmakers were sympathetic to the bill's supporters. For example, Assemblywoman Shama Hader, a Democrat out of Bergen County, said she also has experienced long wait times for a bus, only to see 3 buses arrive in close succession. Hader also says she no longer depends on public transportation because of this and drives instead. Doug O'Malley, the director of Environment New Jersey, said that problems exist with New Jersey Transit all across the entire state, in both urban and suburban areas, in addition to rural communities as well. Either there aren't enough buses and drivers, or they don't come on time and aren't fast enough, or routes don't exist to get them to where someone needs to go in a reasonable amount of time. Ultimately, he invited Governor Phil Murphy to ride a bus to see the hurdles that residents face on a daily basis on public transit. O'Malley also wanted to say, quote, "The reason why this has been able to go on for so long is because bus riders, in some way, have come to expect that service isn't reliable and that it isn't on time." Murphy used to ride public transit semi-regularly before the pandemic, according to administration officials. They would not say when Murphy last used the service, whether it was bus, train, or light rail, or whether or not the governor would accept transit advocates' invitations. Now, Governor Murphy's spokesman, Bailey Lawrence, touted the governor's investment in New Jersey Transit and noted that there have been no fare hikes in the last 4 years. Ooh, great. However, the public transportation system has become more efficient, modern, and sustainable. Well, that's just not true. And this is where I have to take the governor to task and also New Jersey Transit. See, where I live in Hudson County up here, listen, it's very densely populated. I can walk a few blocks and get to the light rail stop. I can get to Hoboken within a reasonable amount of minutes. It's very densely populated, and it's easy to get from point A to point B to point C. But folks, that's not the case just going west of me on Route 80 or down the Turnpike or even down the Garden State Parkway. When it comes to a lot of rural communities and suburban areas of New Jersey, mass transit isn't readily available. Now, am I saying we should build light rail tracks all over the state? That's not the solution either. That's just not what the infrastructure is going to allow for. But what I would argue, folks, is that yes, while there have been no fare hikes, there also hasn't been an improvement or additional sort of resources when it comes to service. Now, I can drive around, and that's very convenient for me. I can Uber or Lyft it anywhere if I don't feel like driving. But that's not the case for a lot of poor-income families in New Jersey, specifically people of color. And I'm not trying to make this political, folks. I'm not trying to sound like some bleeding heart progressive or one of these woke or social justice clowns that I always like to make fun of. This is a real human rights issue here, especially in a state like New Jersey, where as many people are leaving New Jersey, there are still some people moving inwards, right? Leaving New York City because it's become so expensive. When I think about that, I think about the fact that people come into New Jersey and want to be able to get to work or at least go visit family and not spend an arm and a leg when it comes to doing so. New Jersey Transit isn't accommodating that, folks. Again, it's for everyone that lives in Western New Jersey, Central Jersey, or South Jersey, or even along the shorelines. Yes, there are train services that go through all of these regions of New Jersey, but again, they don't have it as advantageous as we do here in Hudson County, nearby maybe southern Bergen County, or nearby Essex County. You live in Union, Middlesex, Somerset, Atlantic, Monmouth, Ocean, take your pick. Yeah, there's train service, but folks, buses don't run on time, and there's no light rail service. We just can't all depend on trains. We can do that up here in North Jersey, Northeast Jersey specifically, but that's not the case. So while the Bill of Rights, I think, is a good start in Trenton, I think legislators, and I understand it's an election year, they don't want to do too much to upset constituents or sort of ruffle their voting record, but legislators need to get off their ass and help people, especially seniors, especially those that are elderly and disabled. They're the individuals that rely on mass transit to go to the doctor's office, to go grocery shopping, to go pick up a prescription at the local CVS or Walgreens. Well, guess what? For a lot of them, it's not a hop, skip, and a jump away. And for a lot of them that don't have a vehicle to drive, relying on New Jersey Transit is the only alternative. And if it's not working on time, if it's not working properly, guess what? Seniors, people of color, low-income families continue to struggle with these sort of inadequacies that exist in New Jersey Transit. So please, to everyone, to all 120 legislators in both the State Assembly and State Senate, get on New Jersey Transit, whatever it is you need to do. I'm not saying raise fares. I'm not saying raise taxes. You can find money to help increase and expand routes because that's what we need here in the Garden State. Let's move to Hoboken, and a special thank you to Hudson TV for their report on this story, and certainly the great work that they do over there, especially Jeff Henning, longtime friend of this show and my other shows on my media brand. And it was announced this week that the city of Hoboken, along with the Hudson Regional Health Commission, will have a clinic at 605 Jackson Street from 10 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. coming up on Tuesday, February the 28th. The clinic will offer Moderna, Pfizer BioNTech, Johnson & Johnson, and Novavax COVID-19 vaccines and boosters, as well as the updated ones to those eligible, again, for 6 months and older. Appointments are encouraged, but walk-ins will be accepted. To book an appointment, obviously, you can go to www.hudsoncovidvax.org. Now, folks, let me say this, because I've gotten a lot of scorn in the last 3 years for it. I've never been an anti-vaxxer. I've never been a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not vaccinated, and I'm proud of that. Not because I'm, shaming people that are vaccinated. No, I get all that. But I think we're starting to see more and more data come out as it pertains to COVID-19 vaccines. Obviously, they were rushed. It was an unprecedented time in human history. We had not seen a pandemic like this in almost 100 years. So I understand the urgency and the expediency to get a vaccine out to millions of people. I chose not to do that. I'm looking to still reproduce. I'm looking to have children in the future. And that was a personal decision by me. I didn't want to get vaccinated and perhaps endanger the possibilities of me reproducing in the future. Again, laugh all you want, but that's a personal choice. I didn't knock anybody for getting a vaccine or getting multiple boosters. So if that's your bread and butter and that's what you choose to do, hey, shout out to the city of Hoboken for providing this clinic. But for many of us, I think as we're learning more about data and more about science, folks, make your own decisions whether or not you want to visit clinics like this. But again, for those of you that seem to be insistent on getting a booster, God bless you. But for people like me, yeah, I'll pass. And I'm sure many others will too. Staying in the Mile Square city of Hoboken, I'm delighted to report that the Hoboken Business Alliance recently made this just amazing announcement that the St. Patrick's Day Parade celebration will be returning coming up on March the 4th. Now, the Hoboken Business Alliance has announced that the St. Patrick's celebration will be returning on Saturday, March the 4th, for the first time since 2011. Now, the HBA launched a survey last November asking if residents wanted to see the parade return, with one caveat being that bar owners would not participate in Leprechaun, which I think is a bad way of going about the survey. More on that later. A holiday-themed bar crawl that often overshadowed the cultural celebration. Now, the parade hasn't been held since 2011, now in its 26th year that the event was held, with organizers announcing in 2012 it will be canceled after they could not come to terms with then Mayor Don Zimmer's administration, who wanted the parade held on a weekday, which didn't make any sense. But again, as we all know, a lot of what Don Zimmer believed in didn't make sense. Now, quote, while poll results can sometimes be hard to read and interpret, the response to this survey could not have been clearer, according to HBA Executive Director Roxanne Early. Hoboken residents are excited to have the St. Patrick's Day festivities return to the city, but they also recognize the impact of past parades, specifically the unsanctioned events that followed that were not in line with the image we want to portray. According to Early, 78% of survey respondents indicated that they want to see the parade come back. Now, the citywide celebration on March the 4th will begin at noon with a St. Patrick's Day themed float departing Jefferson Street and turning left onto 15th Street. The float, being led by the Bergen County Firefighters Pipe Band, will head towards Jackson Plaza at Monroe Street and 7th, where the New Jersey band The Shots will ultimately perform. The celebration will then proceed to the eastern edge of Church Square Park, where a second performance will take place before ending its route along the outside of the Elks Lodge for a final performance by The Shots, as well as dancers from the Garden Street School of the Performing Arts. Folks, I've always enjoyed going to the parade. Now, I didn't like the HBA sort of floating around this caveat that, hey, we can bring the parade back, but let's make sure that bar owners don't participate in Leprechaun, which I think is a bad move. Folks, Leprechaun has been an amazing bar crawl. I've gone to it for many, many years, not in recent years, obviously, even since the pandemic, but it was always a fabric of Hoboken during the early parts of March. We see it down the shore, we see it in Morristown, and even with a stronger police presence, guess what? It hasn't been catastrophic. What always boggles my mind by downtown Hoboken residents is being outraged or being offended or objecting to the bar crawl. You live in downtown Hoboken. Again, when I talk about fickle men and overly hysterical women in Hudson County or New Jersey in general, folks, take no look no further than Hoboken whenever it comes time to talk about bar crawls such as Leprechaun in March and SantaCon in December. It's two bar crawls. Two bar crawls that bring in plenty of revenue and tourism into the city of Hoboken. I get it that Mayor Ravi Bala wants to make downtown Hoboken like, I don't know, Parsippany or Paramus. That just isn't realistic. Nightlife, bars, dining, restaurants, they have become a fabric of downtown Hoboken for decades. Long before Ravi Bala decided to enter City Hall, and hopefully someone can vote him out eventually in 2025. But in the meantime, folks, bar crawls celebrating St. Patrick's Day with what is a Leprechaun and the St. Patty's Day bar crawls altogether doesn't seem like a bad thing. It's just more and more reasons for Hoboken residents in downtown areas to bitch and moan when, quite frankly, hey, it's two bar crawls out of the year. You can't find something to do? Go to the mall. Go to Liberty Science Center. Educate yourself with plenty of the workshops that are there. I don't know, go shopping. Go visit your annoying in-laws. Go take the kids, I don't know, somewhere. Take them to American Dream Mall, to the indoor water park. Do something where, guess what? Bartenders, and again, it's personal for me because I used to bartend in grad school. I know the struggles. I understand that, hey, this is a method of living for not just bartenders, for cooks, for hostesses and hosts, for managers, for bar staff, which again, contribute to the economy of Hoboken. That's what nightlife does. These bar crawls have been relatively harmless, okay? We've seen a stronger police presence by the Hoboken Police Department and neighboring municipalities, and they've made it enjoyable. Have there been some summonses here and there? Sure. Are riots breaking out? Of course not. But again, it's just fickle men and overly hysterical women in Hoboken that just need a reason to just they just bitch to live, and they live to bitch, and that's all they do when it comes to this. Again, the parade itself, I'm happy to see return after really a 12-year hiatus. But as it pertains to the bar crawls, I hope that Hoboken bar owners will be somewhat, I don't know, ingenious. They'll find a way to improvise and make the bar crawls a part of what has become a fabric during early March. Because again, folks, as springtime is quickly approaching, we always know when we see the Hoboken Leprechaun, we know that spring is around the corner. So you know what? It's not a totally bad thing. And I hope that in addition to the parade, that the bar crawl also returns in early to mid-March. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media right here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group, please go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, as well as www.livestream.com/hmgtv. Don't forget to click the subscribe button on YouTube for the Hudson Media Group. Also, make sure you like them on Facebook and follow them on both Instagram and Twitter. You can also check out brand new episodes of the 7-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, by going to blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. You can download episodes and listen to them from anywhere at any time from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. And folks, as a reminder, this week in the Hudson Media Group, we will be hosting a telethon to benefit the fire victims in both West New York and Union City. You'll be able to check out all the important links to donate online via the Hudson Media Group. So let's do our part, ladies and gentlemen, to help families that have been displaced and businesses ultimately that have been affected by these very tragic fires. Of course, Hudson Media Group will continue being that leader in the community in raising awareness about these types of accidents and disasters, and certainly helping families all throughout Hudson County. Also, remember to check out the show on Facebook, of course, Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe, and of course, follow it on Instagram at Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe, as well as my own social media at the Fernando Zone on both Instagram and Twitter, and check out myself as well, Fernando Uribe, on Facebook. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, Top 100 Latino, the Be Latino Spirit online magazine, the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, and certainly the people's choice and the people's voice. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe, saying so long, folks, and as always, thank you so much for watching.